This brain was trained to respond at an animal level or at a level where the consciousness is not in control. Hey, welcome back to Uncivilized Rebirth. You are my mission, and I have some very important information to share. It's basically the internal workings of what's going on up here and how to reprogram or rewire your brain. Now, I've shared my story on here. That being said, I know how to rewire the brain basically. So follow me on this. So, you got the brain, and let's say a healthy brain, a brain that when it sees things externally, it actually, the consciousness chooses, I'm going to activate this process and say these words. I'm going to activate this process and move my arms this way. And this is representation of saying kind words or using your hands in a nice way. It's just a representation. So here's where your consciousness resides, roughly. And it chooses the actions to make from what is seen through the eyes or heard through the ears. It's like, how do I react to this? Or do I react? Or do I choose how I react? So, that's the way it's supposed to work. We're supposed to have all these skills, and then we see what's happening in the world, then we choose, oh, I'm going to say this, or I'm going to do this. And you conduct yourself in a really good, put together manner. Now, check this out. Here's a brain, but this brain was trained to respond at an animal level or at a level where the consciousness is not in control. The brain is running the show. And this is what's really cool about the brain. It can be programmed in with a marker that says do A, B, and C when, let's say, A, B, or C is heard. And I'll explain this. So these are inputs, and they go in, and let's say it's seeing a certain face, just throwing something out there, or a smell, like a wartime thing maybe. Well, the nose smells A. That registers at this marker. Well, let's go back to childhood. Let's say it's a person, an adult, and you see them and you freak out and you go, like, you're programmed to run and hide so you'll feel safe. That's like your base instinct of survival. So A is the eyeball sees this person, and this marker says A, which is run and hide. So the marker, the consciousness is not saying I'm going to move this leg, I'm going to increase the heart rate, I'm going to replay these memories, and then I'm going to run to this corner. It doesn't happen that way. The marker is activated. So this marker activates the processes of increasing heart rate, increasing the oxygen intake, breathing, and maybe playing memories, and then activating emotions, which are basically a frequency. So you have energy coming up the spine, and when this marker is activated, it's saying increase the energy to the umpteenth level, as in the heart needs to start pumping, so it needs more energy. So it means we need way more energy. So then all of a sudden, all this energy is getting diverted to the heart. It's getting diverted to the diaphragm. And then the diaphragm has to go faster to get lungs to the system, to oxygenate, because the muscles now need more blood to run. And it's the body's in panic mode. So then if the memories are told to play, it says, oh, let's say this is a memory reel. So then this marker says activate these memories. That takes more energy. That takes up the processing center of the brain. So now the brain is processing, pulling out this memory and playing it. The brain's telling to run, maybe to scream. So now within a split second of this input, you got the heart rate, the breathing, the diaphragm, the muscles, the memory, the emotions. That's like a huge like frequency like takes over. Maybe that sick feeling in the gut. All of that takes energy. There is absolutely zero awareness going on here. These are instincts that are in the brain, but they're programmed in now into a marker that can get triggered out here by any number of stimuli. So then this marker gets activated and it's all operating on its own with no awareness. The person's not thinking, I'm going to run over here, I'm going to play this memory, I'm going to scream in terror, I'm going to have these emotions. The more this happens, the more the pathway from A gets hardwired into the brain as a neural pathway to that marker. So the more that happens, the more it reinforces the pathway. So let's take a brain again, and let's say this is somebody with complex PTSD, lots of trauma. Raise his hand in the back. And so there's all these markers programmed in. Being abused by a father, being M-worded by a grandmother, being touched and rubbed on by a barber, going to war, seeing a dude shot up when you're a kid, being in an IED blast, find out your friend hung himself, like boom, boom, boom. These are all markers now that are programmed in of like really traumatic experiences that, let's say, even when you have certain smells or certain memories, or you see a flag, or you hear about the war, or hear about childhood stuff, automatically, we're going to say these are neural pathways right here that have been reinforced to go to these markers. And each one of those markers activates its own process, which may be unhealthy coping mechanisms or their own processes of how it deals with these traumatic events or these memories or these markers that are brought up. So that being said, like there could be like A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, like a ton of things that trigger these different markers. So now you have an adult raise his hand in the back who's going through life and starts to try to avoid everything, playing it safe, people pleaser, just scared of being assertive, after being just hurt and traumatized so many times. And there's a lot of humans out there like that. And the brain has all these markers that can get triggered by all these things externally or even internally. And even people externally will know what this person's triggers are and they'll do it on purpose just to be shitheads. And so the goal now is not to go to therapy and talk about it for hours, not to like just piddle paddle around and waste time. The goal is to, I'm going to redo this circle. Right now, the short-term goal is to draw a better circle. So I got this circle right here, just the brain again. Let's say this is one of those markers where there's external stimuli of A, the energy goes to it, and it activates these other processes that take more energy. So if you've ever been triggered from PTSD and you're just like overwhelmed, having a panic attack, your energy is amped up going to these processes and you're not in control, literally. And it's scary. It doesn't feel good. how do you divert that energy from going to that marker in the first place? On this pathway, this neural pathway that's so well built and it activates so easily. So you got to avoid all the triggers. It's like, and I'm not trying to make fun of that. I did it for years. It's like, got to avoid all of this stuff in my life because I know this will happen and I can't control it. And there's a certain level of not being able to control it, honestly. So, how do you start diverting that energy to go to a new marker? Because the reason a person would want to do this in the brain is, let's say you see this trigger 30 times and you're able to divert this energy 30 times. Boop, 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 boop. Guess what? This old pathway stops getting used. Eventually, the brain will just automatically, when it sees the trigger, will go to the new marker you've created. How do you create that marker? I will tell you how. I will tell you, because what you're doing is you're wanting to create a new pathway in the brain. And you want to, here's that marker. When the energy's going up, you want to capture it and send it this way. And it takes a force of will and it takes planning. And here's what I've created to do that. So we have the brain, and I want to create a new marker that demands a lot of energy, that has really good shit in it. Well, why do I do that? Well, when the energy went to that old marker, that means there's a character flaw. Like when this is received externally, the character does this. So it's a character flaw. So it's like literally we have a gap in our character. And we got to figure out, how do we fill in that gap, which is actually a neural pathway that sends energy and actually activates processes. So if this is the gap in our character that gets triggered and goes haywire for a few days, and it takes a while to get back to a solid character, it's like, how do we program in that character? How do we program a new marker and get the energy diverted where we want it to go? Check this out. So if you do a new process or learn a new thing, it goes to somewhere in your brain and starts getting programmed in, and you're focusing on sending that energy there. You're focusing on paying attention, and eventually you get to the point where you're just like, I'm going to get down and play the piano, and I don't even have to think about it. When it took probably years of focus to the point where it's just the energy goes into the piano marker, and this is what we do. Then it sends the energy out through the fingertips, and it's just a natural process now. So here we go. So we got a character gap. We need to fill that character gap in on how we want to act. So we have this space of time where we have this trigger and we go haywire. We want to fill this space of time in with a new code of conduct or a new way we present in the world. Now follow me on this. So a symbol and information about your character. So what you do is you create a symbol, a circle with something simple in it, and then you write out a character sheet of how you want to conduct yourself. You have the symbol at the top of the page, you have the symbol at the bottom of the page, and you read that character sheet in the morning and at night, and you look at that symbol. And then you use a dry erase marker and you draw that symbol in your bathroom mirror. The symbol and the information get put together. They are a symbiotic entity now. Whenever you think about that character information, you're thinking about the symbol, validate. And whenever you think about the symbol, the character information populates. Because when you look at the McDonald's symbol, like all the McDonald's stuff comes to mind automatically. You don't have to think about it individually. You look at the Apple symbol and the whole idea and essence of that brand comes to your mind. So this symbol is basically your personal brand of information of how you want to be, and it will automatically populate. That is getting programmed into a spot together. Next, breath work. If you do a new type of breath work, it has to be put somewhere. But if you're doing this breath work while you read your information on your character and looking at your symbol, it is going to the same location. So, breath work. Simply tighten your core, take a super duper deep breath, tighten your core really hard, and imagine the tip of your spine, the base of your brain, and draw that symbol before you read your information sheet and at the bottom of your information sheet. I'll do a video that goes more in depth about breath work, but this is just an overview. So now you're programming in a new symbol, new character information, and new breath work, and it's going to one spot. This is a marker now that you're creating. That energy from your focus and your awareness, you're diverting your energy here, creating a new marker in a comfortable, relaxed scenario. So you don't have anything else going on. Next, we're going to program in tapping. And I'm pulling from a lot of different areas of things I've learned from, and I've put them together to do this. So with tapping, let's say I take that deep breath, tighten my core, think about my symbol, and then I go tap, tap, tap. What I just did is I sent a signal from my brain while I was thinking about this symbol and this information, while I'm doing my breath work, and I'm sending a signal down my arm. It's going here, being received, and registering back in my brain. So I'm literally creating an energetic loop there. That there's a signal that goes out here, gets received, and lands in there. So basically, from the brain and then the arm that's tapping to the other arm, it's like there's a signal going through there. And I'm reinforcing that marker. So I'm sending out a signal while I'm doing these other items. And I'm creating, like I said, I'm creating this marker. It takes focus, and the brain is starting to build new neural pathways, and it's starting to build this, I like to call it a codex, but it's like this core of information of how you want to conduct yourself. And so what starts to happen is when you practice this, I want to say, right now there's 4 of theirs, but I want to say there's one more item, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But taking this simply, you're putting together these items that you've never had together and you've never done it before. I'm sure you've never sat down, created a symbol, created a character, and then did a special breath while you look at your symbol, read your character, did the breath again, and then did a tap. What you're doing is you're tying these things in together, all of it together, and it takes energy. So what happens is when you feel like you're starting to get triggered, what you do is you can hold that breath, think of your symbol, do your tap, and when that energy is going up to get here, you're diverting it to your new marker. That's what you want to do. Like, you want to rewire the brain. You want to start building this new neural pathway that overrides the pathway. Not overrides, but it's like an off ramp on a highway that you're creating. So now the energy just diverts from going to that marker, and you've created the off ramp. So now not only do you have an external marker that triggers, check this cool crap out. When you do this tap, you automatically trigger your symbol. Your symbol is tied in with information. I'm sweating, like I'm excited about this. Your symbol is tied in with the information about your character. And then also your breath work was done at the same time you're working in your symbol. So everything triggers everything. Granted, your breath work you have to do on your own, but follow this. you get triggered to go into that old fight or flight panic. But now, when you start to feel that, you do your tapping, tighten your core, take that deep breath, think about your symbol, your character information of how you want that conduct to happen during that period of time that usually would be taken up with all this stuff going on. So now it's like, okay, so this character is calm. This character thinks about what they're going to do next. This character is going to be very careful on how they speak next. This character sits down and takes deep breaths instead of panicking. So now it's not like, oh, I can't control myself, I can't do that. You have to look at it mechanically of now you're in control of where that energy is going in your brain. And after you do this for a consistent amount of time and get this new marker programmed in, like I said, these old neural pathways are just kind of like, not really needed anymore, because every time we try to trigger this stuff from when we see that external trigger, every time it starts to happen, wait a second, it all gets diverted to this new marker and all the energy goes there. So now instead of your energy getting amped up to activate emotions, increase your heart rate, work your diaphragm, get more oxygen to your muscles, play memories, it's going to just calm, cool, and collected. And you're diverting the energy. And that's boiled down what's happening in your brain when you get triggered. It's not, oh, I can't help it, that's just me. No, like your brain is like a mushroom, and there's all these pathways where energy gets sent on. And if you focus and program in a new system, you divert the energy. And then this works for all these other triggers. All these other triggers. When the energy starts going there, it's like, wait a second. Here's the cool thing. Now, when this is done long enough, your triggers become triggers for the new character you've programmed in. And so since like that symbol populates all the information of that character, you don't have to sit there and overanalyze everything. You automatically have this feeling and this knowing of everything about how that character conducts themselves. This becomes your new identity, in a sense. This is what you pull from for your conduct in these gaps. So now, all these old triggers, you redirect the energy to a new trigger. Guess what happens? The world doesn't recognize you. People don't recognize you. You're like, what the fuck? I used to be able to control this person. I used to be able to make this person flip out. I used to be able to push their buttons. And when they no longer can, what happens is like our old triggers used to validate their character of like, I have power over this person. I can do this. It's like I have this command over them by doing these things. And that validates them. But when they no longer get validation from your reactions for them, their input, some people are just evil as shit. So they flip out and they go hog wild, like literally, because then they start acting out and they get triggered because when they're not validated, they're gonna be like, I'm gonna get validated, but you're sitting over here, you've programmed in your calm, cool, and collected version that you pull from, and you're diverting the energy in your brain to where you want it to go, because it all boils down to energy. And then it takes about, honestly, like for me, it was like 2 years or so when I first learned about this or created this and started understanding the inside of the brain. It took about 2 years because the brain is like a mushroom. You have to feed it the proper nutrients. You have to hydrate it, and you have to give it time for it to shift and morph and create the new pathways and get to the point where there's just new neural pathways and the old ones are no longer being activated. No energy is being sent down. So it's like you're not changing your personality. You're changing where the energy is going in your brain and how it's being used. Because a lot of people like It's like, is your personality really how you use your energy? Or is it your soul? Is it your essence, like who you are at the core, which is back here? When you start controlling and creating new markers in your brain, your soul starts taking precedence and you start presenting in life as a spirit. Because here we go. Like you're a multi-dimensional being. There's a spiritual realm. Your soul's plugged into the three-dimensional. So you're operating in two realms. And then there's a whole energy world that's operating too and going on. And then we're not aware of. So imagine when it's just the brain reacting to everything in the three-dimensional, and then everything else about our existence is being ignored. Well, heck, man, we're like a pinball in a pinball machine just getting knocked around, like controlled all over the place and not told of who we really are. But when you take control of your own brain, because it's a biomechanical processing unit that you can reprogram, and it just takes a little bit of work. Roadhouse, spiritual hard.